episode Orb on the movements of the Earth. We talked about it for a brief like
Yeah,
tail end of the podcast last time. Um, just I do not want to get into it like because I think there's like a lot of not twists or anything like that, but like they're doing stuff with the story. Yeah, and I guess here's a better way to set it up because I know I had said last time like in a weird way it reminded me of To Your Eternity and Vinland
yeah,
Saga.
yeah.
And I was more like aligned with the Two Year Journey based on kind of like maybe the animation style, kind of like the simplicity of the
Yeah.
world. I could not have been very coincidental about how similar it is to Your Eternity, not in any mythical or kind of sci-fi ways. It's just the way the usage of time and way they play around with
Oh,
time and from like moments here to there and like meeting characters along the way way more akin to that than I ever would have thought in like more of a grounded way, just kind of there's like a really good basis of like the passage of or the passing of knowledge to others and
right.
like how things can kind of get lost or kind of like no, we cannot allow this to get lost, this needs to be handed down. But it's this anime is like the definition of why the 3 episode rule with anime
Hmm.
is like this is why like you need to get to the third
Oh, I see.
episode
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you're like, oh, okay, this is what they're trying to do and going forward. But
Gotcha.
if just to remind everybody, it's just a story. It's set in 15th century Poland. Again, the power of anime. Like, you couldn't get a live action story, but you could get a movie or TV show off the ground to save your life. But anime is like,
Yeah,
fuck
yeah,
it, we're
yeah.
doing it,
Fuck it, we're doing
and
it.
we're doing it, and it just kind of follows like a young boy who's very advanced and very intelligent. He's like already going to university or whatever like the level of university is at his age. I think he's like probably 12 or 13, and he's obsessed with astrology or astronomy, and he's kind of like clearly being coerced into going into theology instead because it's the 15th century Poland, like the church runs
Okay,
everything.
got you.
And
Understood.
he kind of like stumbles upon like, oh, like because there's this whole theory, at the time the church, they weren't just like religious, like they were very scientific, like they were like the leaders on astronomy and mathematics and all this stuff. And they had the theory that the Earth was the center of the universe or the
Yeah,
galaxy.
yeah.
And this kid, through A, B, and C, kind of comes to the like realization, like, oh shit, like the sun might actually it's heliocentrism, not Earth centrism or however they call it, where we're moving around the sun, like so, but that flies in the face of like what the church says of like, oh, like
Yeah.
they repeat this line that like God made, or it's so funny too, because like I have like no, I didn't go to we didn't go to Catholic schools, like I've
Okay.
never
I was gonna
read
say
anything
everything
like
you're
that.
saying so far is exactly historically accurate.
Yeah, it's a very very historically accurate show. So like it kind of hearing like what the previous religious beliefs were is
Yeah.
interesting to hear. Um, and it's just, but yeah, dude, it's crazy how a show about like watching the stars and like there's
Hmm.
just all these other messages and like again the way they play around with time and kind of jumping back and forth and again that's not really a spoiler, but like just because they're kind of going along how this information is being passed, and they have to be super careful because the second it comes to light, like they're deemed heretics, there's no question they're getting burned on the stake kind of thing. So,
Got you.
but like I said, it's more akin to Vinland Saga in that regard, and kind of has like more of the hardy moments of like people like struggling in that time period and like kind of finding bonds in others and other like-minded people, kind of overcome the adversity they have. And then on the other side, you have all these like very fluid kind of like the To Your Eternity stuff where it's like you just really think pieces of like people kind of coming upon these ways of thinking, which To Your Eternity kind of did. Like they'd introduce people and like they have a very specific way of thinking, and like well, I'm blanking on his name, main character of To Your Eternity.
Theon Greyjoy.
Theon Greyjoy. Anyways,
Thorfinn.
but
Thorfinn.
no,
Thorfinn.
not Thor, not Vinland Saga, but To Your Eternity.
Oh,
Um,
Fushi.
Fuji, Fushi. So like because he has all this history and all this knowledge, he kind of like passes it on to people, and they're like, oh, like that is like a very interesting way of thinking of things. I don't know, it has the perfect flavor of the two,
Hmm.
more heavily leaning on Vinland Saga, like the historical stuff. Um, but like, and the show looks good, but the second the camera pans up and you see the sky and the stars, it's like, oh, rightly so. This is where they put all their budget. Like they really try to play into like people are watching the star. Like they have this whole plot where um there's this guy who in his youth was told by the church that like it was just like a cruel joke played by a priest on the when this guy was a kid that like like the stars are eyes watching you, and this guy goes his whole life without looking up at the sky. But he's like really, but he's like in this point where like he like it's like a liver, like a liver die situation, and he has to like look up at the sky and watching this
Yeah.
guy overcome this stuff, and it's like this is like weirdly powerful,
Yeah, yeah.
and it finds little ways at the animeisms, but like it's one of those shows you're just like, holy fuck, man, like this is not. Why was this not pushed super hard? Again, it's a problem. It's on Netflix. Like they're never going to.
So
But
yeah, and
I
interject with that question is this one of the shows that's simulcast on Netflix and Crunchy, or it's just a
no.
Netflix
just
exclusive?
just Netflix.
So yeah, it's
Like
probably
again, it's in
part of
my
the problem.
algorithm. It's on my splash page. Like every time, it's the first thing I see when I sign into
Yeah.
Netflix.
How many
You know,
episodes are out?
I think 9 now. It's been on. Like it started airing. Like it's a fall show, so it started airing with
Yeah.
everything else. But yeah, it's like it's you have to. It's one of those things. Like if you're not into it in the first few episodes, like that's fine. But again, I'm not trying to pitch and I got so much, but like I
But give
think
her
this
the
like
three
I
if you're gonna
think
try.
anyone listening, and not just you, Dave, like the just what they do in those first 3 episodes, kind of setting the time period, the power of the church, kind of like the hopelessness of anyone trying to like further like their own scientific, studies, and like just the crushing power of the church is like such a big thing, and just kind of what like the ways people try and get around that. I don't know. It's not a show that I ever expected to be on my radar.
Hmm.
I only tried it because it was on the page and the key art was like really, really cool. And I was like, oh, this doesn't quite seem like what the trailer shows, so I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a pretty good show.
Jeez.
Yeah,
Okay. Orb on the movements of the Earth.
yeah, banger OP and ED too. So
Banger
good.
OP. All right, on Netflix. Okay, I'll see if I can get around to it.
Yep.
It might be tricky because with right now we've got two couple shows, right?
Hmm.
Thursdays, Dan to Dan.
Word.
And then, we're getting back into the whole like we need a 1 hour drama. We had
Mm.
White Lotus. Sam abandoned me when it came to the Penguin, said it was too dark. But what we seem to be agreeing on